Hey everyone, it's Deja with Knit and Crochet Ever After, and today we are making the men's Boulder scarf, as in like rock boulder, not as I'm bold. So I recently released the men's rock knit scarf, and I wanted to make a crochet counterpart to it. It's not the same kind of style, it's a different kind of style, but you'll see that it's a very dense, basic kind of scarf, which I think that men would appreciate to wear. You know, they kind of like basic stuff. So I tried to make kind of a basic but interesting scarf for them so that you can make one for your guy. And I dig it, like make it in a pretty color for you. It will work either way. But I tried to keep the guys in mind when I made this. So download the pattern below and we'll get started. So material wise, I used some of my Knit Crate yarn, which is a knit and crochet yarn subscription. I'll link it in the description. You don't have to use the exact yarn. You can use a DK or worsted weight. I used about 425 yards for the length that's listed in the pattern. You can definitely use less or more, make it longer, shorter. It's a really quick repeat. It's just this long as the repeat, so you can really customize the size to whatever you want. I used a 6mm USJ hook. The bigger you go with the hook on worsted weight, the drapier it gets. So the ball band may say a 5mm hook. I recommend going up to at least a 6mm. 5mm is going to give you very dense stitches, and it's not going to be super comfortable to wear. So the bigger on the hook you go, the more drapey and soft it will become. So that's your tip of the day. So like I said, this is a really easy pattern. We have two sections of repeats. One is a 1-row repeat. The other one is a 1-row repeat as well, pretty much. But we're gonna start with just a simple single crochet border, and then we'll get into it. And we'll start showing you those stitches right now. So let's go work the body and then we'll talk a little more. Okay, so we are going to start with our foundation chain. You can make it the same as the pattern or any number of odd stitches if you want to make it wider or less wide. The stitch repeats are very simple, so you can make it any width you'd like, just make sure it's odd. So I did 13 stitches and I'm going to end up with 12 stitches at the end because I'm going to skip this first chain and I'm going to single crochet into the next one and in each stitch across. And this is just going to give me a simple single crochet border so that I'm not having spaces on the end of my work when I work my single crochet border all the way around the entire scarf at the end, because the next stitch, which is going to be part of our kind of mesh repeat, has some chain ones, so I don't want to do that in the very beginning of the foundation. So single crochet across and then we'll start our first stitch repeat. Okay, so single crochet in that last stitch, and then we are going to turn and begin our mesh repeat, which is a one row repeat. All these are 1-row repeats, which I love. So we're going to chain one. We're single crocheting in that very first stitch. Remember, if you're new, look for the 2 V's or the 1 V, the 2 loops. That's what you're going under. So when you're working that first kind of stitch, you kind of have all these weird things in front of you. Just look for the 2 V's and get under those. That's the part that you want to look for any stitch that you're working, unless it specifically tells you to go somewhere further down. So we're doing a single crochet and then our stitch repeat begins. We're going to chain one, we're going to skip that next stitch, and then we're going to single crochet into the next stitch. And we're just going to do that across. Now, a tip that I'm going to give you, your hook, you normally make your chain the same size as your hook shaft, and then you're skipping that next stitch. I am going to suggest to you to pull your chain out just a tad before you make it. And that's going to help keep your rows even. It's going to give you a little bit more room. It's going to be more the length of the stitch below, and it's not going to kind of scrunch your project. So let me show you, if I don't pull that out a little, kind of the difference. So normally when you make a chain, you make it the same size as your shaft, and you might end up pulling on it as you're working. If you don't have enough slack on your yarn, you may pull that chain kind of small, but when you go into this next stitch, the little space between the stitches is going to start pulling and you're going to have smaller rows. So definitely pull that chain out a little bit on each stitch. It's one little extra tug to give you a little bit more room, and if you have more than you need, that's okay. It's not going to show in your rows, but if you don't have enough, it's going to shrink them for sure. So just do that on each row and you'll have a little bit better luck in matching up your rows with your stitches. So we're just going to continue to chain one, pull that out a little bit, skip the stitch below, and single crochet into the next one. So the repeat says to work until the last stitch. So here's my last stitch. It's all kind of funky. And we're doing that single crochet in the second to last stitch, and the last stitch it says to single crochet. So by doing that, we've set ourselves up to not have to think about our repeat, because it's going to be the same as what we just did. If I did an even amount of stitches, I would have to change every other row what I'm doing. So these odd number of stitches creates the perfect repeat. So we're doing 5 more rows of this setup. So we're going to chain one, we're going to single crochet into that first stitch just like we did in the row below. We're going to chain one, we're skipping that single crochet below, and this time we're working into the chain one all the way around it. So it's super easy to find these stitches and work this mesh. Chain one, skip the single crochet, go into the chain one. So you're always working the opposite of what is above. Chain one, single crochet in that chain one, all the way across, and we'll do one more row just so you can see how this works out. So just like the previous row, we have a single crochet before the last stitch, and our last stitch is a single crochet, and we're single crocheting into that. So we're always ending with 2 single crochets at the end of the row. So when we go to the next row, we're already set up. We single crochet in that first single crochet, chain one, skip that single crochet, and work into the chain one. So you can kind of see the pattern here. So we're doing 6 rows of this. You can change it up, you can do more, you can do less, make it your own, but this is what the pattern is calling for, so we're gonna follow that, but I'm going to deviate. I'm gonna move on to our next stitch because it's super simple. Our next stitch pattern of the repeats that we have this for 6 rows, and then we're going to do something else for 6 rows, and it's super simple. You've probably done it before. We're going to double crochet. So to begin it though, we're going to do a tall chain. I love tall chains because they eliminate gaps on the end of your scarf. Normally you would chain 3 for a double crochet, and that would count as a double crochet, and then you would work into your next stitch. So let me show you the difference here. When you do that, you get this big hole here because the chains are much skinnier than your double crochet. So we're going to get rid of those chains, and we're going to do a tall chain instead. The tall chain is just going to be bringing up our height to the height of a double crochet. So we're going to kind of pull it to where we think a double crochet would be, and we're going to lock it in with a chain. And instead of skipping that first stitch, we're going to do a double crochet in that first stitch. And now you'll see, whoops, if I don't lose it, come on, Deja, get it together. Here we go. I'm going to do one more just so you can see the difference. So we're going to, this is all we're doing. We're double crocheting across. So now you can see I have 2 stitches and I have this tall chain that's blending into this first stitch, and once we put that single crochet border on, it's going to disappear completely, and we don't have those gaps. Otherwise we would have been working into that chain 3 for our border, and it would have made big holes in the sides. So we're double crocheting across, we're double crocheting into the single crochets, and then we are double crocheting in around, again around, not in, but around the chain ones. So we're doing this for 6 rows as well. So it's just repeating 6, 6, 6. I mean 6 and 6. Not that other number. And you can do this for as many repeats as you want until you run out of yarn. Just at the very end, we're going to finish off with 6 rows of the mesh so that you match on both sides, and then finally a single crochet row at the very end, just like how we began. So we match completely. Then we're going to be doing the single crochet border. So you'll notice it says to do 3 in each corner. So I'm just going to quickly get here to this side. So this is kind of how you're going to find spots and just make it as even as you can. It's really hard when you're working down the side of a project. Just look for spaces where you won't create huge holes in the side. Look for kind of places where you can put your hook that seem logical and spaced out. If you see that your project is starting to ruffle, you have too many stitches. If you see it starting to stretch out, you have too few. So frog back out and try respacing them again. Now when you get to your corner, it says to make 3 stitches. So I have 1 here. I'm going to do 1 right in the corner to make my turn, and then 1 more to make the full turn so that I can start working along my next edge. So that's what we're going to do around the edge to create that single crochet border. You can leave it off if you want. You can make it a couple, you can go around a couple times to make it thicker, whatever you like. Totally up to you. But that's how we are going to finish off the scarf. Okay, so you now know how to work the 2 section repeats. You're just going to continue that on for as much as you want. Even though the double crochet is kind of the second repeat, end with the chain 1 SC repeat so that you match on both sides. So let me unroll this real quick. So follow the pattern instructions at the end so that you have the same on both ends, so that you don't have a wonky mismatched scarf for your person. So finish that off. Then we're going to do a simple single crochet border around the entire thing, and that's going to help with your edges. So if your edges look a little wonky, don't worry. We're going to single crochet and then we're going to talk about blocking. Okay, we got it all blocked and the edges are much straighter. Looks a lot better in my opinion. I fix the bottom edges so they're nice and crisp as well. So it's now ready to gift or wear, whatever you're gonna do with it. Get crafty with this. You can definitely switch colors because you're doing that single crochet border. You can hide all the edges, so you could run up the edges along the side, or you could cut and weave them in. But you could do, the mesh part in a different color. You can do like super stripes or get striped yarn, self-striping yarn. All of that will really make it special and unique. You don't have to just stick with one color. I would love to see what you make. Tag me on Instagram, Facebook, post them. I want to see what you guys have done with this to make it your own. If you have any questions, use that contact me link in the description. And I'm Deja with Knit and Crochet Ever After, and thank you for watching.